When the last portal of the conjunction of the spheres closed and the cataclysm was complete, the world of the continent was already filled with various creatures. Chorts and fiends lurked in the undergrowth, and Leshen lorded over the beasts of the forest. The shriek of a garkain could be heard in the air, and the three sisters, the new ladies of the woods, the Crones of the Crookback Bog, were walking through the swamps of Velen. Elves were hiding in their settlements behind the walls of majestic castles, and somewhere on the horizon, white sails appeared, the sails of the first human ships. These were the primordial times, the times of the relicts of the conjunction of the spheres, the victims of the great joining of the worlds. And today, we will tell you about them. This is the Old Witcher. As usual, we thank our patrons for the incredible support and also encourage you guys to join their ranks and also become our sponsors right here on YouTube. This would help our channel grow immensely, and you guys will get even more quality content in return. Anyways, get yourself some snacks, subscribe to the channel, and put a like to our video. We're getting started. Humans. The ability to survive and adapt is key for the relicts of the conjunction of the spheres. New residents of the continent had to get used to the conditions they found themselves in. Their future depended on it, the existence of entire species, humans. Those who call themselves the original people of the continent, those who sincerely believe that this world belonged to them. And in fact, hundreds of years after the conjunction of the spheres, this world can indeed be defined as belonging to humans. They came to the continent and crushed everything under their feet so quickly that other races did not even have time to realize it. If we take adaptation as a key factor, then all questions immediately disappear. Humans are a model of adaptability. They can get used to any conditions as long as these very conditions allow their body to exist in the world. They will adapt to everything they can adapt to. Everything else, they will simply bend their will and remake in their own way so that they are comfortable. Their lifespan is relatively short, so they act quickly. They burn within the decades they have allotted and burn out, preparing the world for future generations, while long-lived races only smolder but do not burn. Humans arrived at the world of the continent by ship. No one knows what happened on their home planet, what forced them to resettle. It is only known that it is almost impossible to live there now. The place where that world merged with the continent's one was obviously somewhere in the ocean. Initially, people had many ships on which thousands of travelers moved into the gap between the worlds. But for some unknown reason, only 4 ships out of dozens arrived at the mouth of the pontoon. Perhaps the other ships were lost at sea. Or maybe humans, as often happens, had fights during the journey and sank the ships of their own tribesmen, of their own kin, in the struggle for survival. In any case, 4 ships arrived at the mouth of the Pontar and Yarugo rivers. The people who got off them founded the first 3 kingdoms. The names of the first human leaders are known to this day: Sembok, Desmod, Serban, Abrad the Old Oak, and other more or less legendary figures. We've got a nice little video series about the whole thing. Check the description for that. But the most famous name, though, among those who arrived still belonged to the first human sorcerer. Jan Becker was his name, and he did a lot to elevate the human race in the continent. Soon as he stepped ashore, he felt the magical power that was literally in the air. Through dangerous experiments, he was able to capture and tame this power, and also found others, equally capable men and women who became his first associates, the first sorcerers, and ensured humanity's survival and development. Becker made water sprinkle from a stone in the place where the first settlement was laid. He calmed the waves and controlled the weather to prevent crops from dying due to excess or lack of rain. Thanks to him, human settlements grew at an incredible rate. In the future, he established the first friendly contacts with the Elves. He also found the sources, the children from the first human generation in the New World who already had an innate talent for magic. Moreover, it was Becker who arranged it with the Elves to take the human sources to their training. And the Elves were happy to help the new intelligent race. They did not know then that in the future they would be incredibly sorry for that decision. But that is not what we are talking about right now, because one way or another humanity tamed magic, took root in the New World, and began to inhabit the lands where only untouched nature had recently reigned. They began to build cities, started the political life of the world, unleashed conflicts and wars, and became masters of the continent. They began to call this world their own, sometimes without even realizing that they were relicts of the conjunction of the spheres. just like the deadly Chorts and the terrible Leshens, for example. Vampires. Although humans became the leading force on the continent, they had to fight for their place under the sun, and in addition to various bloodthirsty but primitive monsters, they were opposed by very intelligent and powerful creatures, who were aliens from other worlds as well, the same children of the conjunction of the spheres who managed to settle down in the continent. Vampires were among the best at assimilating into the new world. Arriving in the still untouched continent, many of these creatures forgot about their past homeland and remembered it only when the cataclysm ended and the gates between the worlds closed for good. Why did the continent attract vampires so much? Probably because the simplicity of life here. The vampires quickly realized that the continent had a lot of resources and a lot of free space. They needed blood to feed, and it was available at the snap of a finger. Humans did not yet dominate the entire land, and the elves did not want to own more than they needed. In addition to that, there were no ways to fight vampires. No one knew how to resist these powerful creatures to their pure joy. The vampires had everything they needed to turn the continent into their own kingdom, where only they would rule. Others would be forced to simply accept a slave fate or die, but something went wrong. Probably it's all about the species diversity of vampires. After all, along with the superior individuals, smart, cunning, and almost almighty and all-powerful, there were others, garkains, fletters, and chimeras, that is, lesser or lower species, who are not much different from animals, driven solely by their thirst for blood, incapable of thinking about tactics and strategy. They caused panic everywhere, sowing death and forcing other intelligent races to look for ways to fight them. And among all vampires, these were the majority. Because of them, no one wanted to deal with intelligent and higher vampires either. They were feared, not respected. Others tried to fight them, not tolerate them. They were hated, and they were forced to hide their essence. Moreover, the higher vampires were disjointed and never hurried in their actions. Time for them, beings almost immortal, passed differently than for humans. And when they woke up from another long sleep, they were often surprised to learn that the human race had almost doubled its population during this time. And when humans became the dominant force in the continent, many of the higher vampires wanted to join the human society and did not try to dominate it. Some of the leaders of the vampire race withdrew from the rest of the world altogether, becoming unseen elders. They missed their former home, their native world, where things never happened so fast, where there was no chaos, where they felt much more harmoniously. And these elder vampires just waited for the moment of the reconjunction of the spheres to return home. It was good that they had eternity in reserve. There was no need for them to rush at all. We've got videos about it as well. Check the description. The new generations of higher vampires did not know their native world anymore. They tried to blend into the existing system, to become part of human society. They hid their true nature. They got their blood quietly so that no one would know about it. They lost their identity, and at some point, exhausted by the problem of dangerous lower vampires and other relics of the conjunction of the spheres, humans created witchers. The renegade sorcerers, Cosimo Malaspina and Alzur, created human mutants, monster hunters. The vampire population then plummeted. There were very few lesser individuals. There were also fewer higher ones. Now vampires are simply obliged to get along with humans. They have lost their chance for domination forever, and now they're trying to avoid complete extermination. Monsters. On a yearly basis, in the continent there was less and less space for anyone but humans. Even the most powerful and advanced races retreated under their onslaught. What can we say about the monsters, who have always seen humans as prey, and with whom humans often fought absolutely uncompromisingly? To this day, only a small percentage of the monsters that came to the continent during the conjunction of the spheres have survived. The reason for this, obviously, is humans and the witchers created by human sorcerers that became the ultimate weapon against monsters. It was the witchers who finally won the war for a place under the sun for humans in the continent. Because of this, for example, the population of fiends and Chorts has significantly decreased. These absolutely savage, bloodthirsty and deadly monsters are among those with whom one cannot negotiate. They can only be exterminated because humans are food for them. Let us imagine the world immediately after the conjunction of the spheres. Surviving in it was quite a challenge. You could meet the fiend anywhere, a huge creature that moves on 4 limbs, has huge horns and a third eye in its forehead. The fiend's front paws are 4-fingered or 4-toed and end in short claws, and its hind limbs end in hooves. There is a tail. The head is long of sorts. The mouth is wide, full of sharp teeth with long fangs on both jaws. Fiends are incredibly strong and fast. If one meets a fiend in the open field, they will not be able to escape and can immediately declare themselves dead. These relicts did not disdain any meat, and they take humans as fairly easy prey. The same applies to Chorts, with the only difference being that Chorts are slightly smaller in size, so you can escape from them by hiding, for example, in a well-fortified house. It is dangerous in the fields, and it is also better not to go into the forests at all. During the conjunction of the spheres, forests were considered a place where death was in the air. Humans went there only when they were in dire need, choosing very carefully where to get wood. It was all because of the Leshens or Leshies, monsters that could be found behind every tree. Not only did these creatures kill those who dared to offend their domain with their presence, but they also subjugated animals to help them. It was physically impossible to hide from the Leshen in the forest. They were tall, dry-skinned, brown-colored creatures with long limbs and an ugly head. Their fingers were equipped with sharp claws, with the help of which the Leshen climbed trees with incredible speed. They had great strength, both physical and magical. It was impossible to escape from them. Nevertheless, humans were in great need of wood. Therefore, in some settlements, the Leshens were considered to be gods. Humans offered bloody sacrifices to these relicts, their kin, daughters, and sons, all in order to appease the monster and to be able to take at least some of the dry wood and other gifts of nature from the forest. It sounds like insanity, but until witchers and sorcerers appeared everywhere in the world, humans simply had no choice but to worship the Leshen. Massive deforestation began only after Leshens disappeared from the forests. So from this point of view, it is very difficult to say what can be called evil in this world, and the extinction or population reduction happened to all monsters. Spriggans, Shaelmars, Mammons, it doesn't matter. At first humans were afraid of them, then tried to appease them, then tried to exterminate, sometimes successfully, and finally almost completely eradicated some of the species. Relicts that have adapted. Now the relicts of the conjunction of the spheres had to be cunning, and those who were smarter adapted to the new conditions. Many monsters accepted humans as the dominant force and began to try to survive in the world of the humans, quietly existing so as to be less conspicuous to the representatives of this strange race. Dopplers had the easiest time though. These relicts can take the form of absolutely any living creature, adopting the thoughts and memories of that creature. Many of them took on the looks of dead or missing people and assimilated quite easily into the human environment. It is true, sooner or later the identity switch could be revealed, but this is a risk that every Doppler must take for the sake of survival. The worst situation is with the godlings, who have never been particularly dangerous creatures for humans, but on the wave of general hatred for all non-humans, he fell under the gun, figuratively speaking of course. A lot of these innocent little pranksters were killed. Others had to leave human homes for the forests and swamps, where it became much harder for them to survive. It is safe to say that if the situation doesn't change, the godlings might soon face complete extinction. And well, succubi probably have the best of it among the relicts. They have had a hard time too, but at least they're definitely better off than the other. In general, we don't know for sure whether succubi are relicts of the conjunction of the spheres, but many factors point to it. So let's take it as true. The succubi are helped by their attractive appearance, to the human eye that is, and the lust they literally feed on. Many men would give their lives for a night with a succubus. Neither horns nor hooves will deter a man's gaze, because the rest of the succubus's charms appeal too much to primal instincts. Because of this, some succubi secretly get jobs in brothels, while others live off men who are literally going crazy with lust. And even the hatred of the female part of the continent's human race does not change the situation. Endangered species. But not all monsters are able to assimilate into the human world. There are those that are considered extinct, those whose populations have been reduced to a minimum, and those that have gone extinct altogether. The first in this list are the aguars, creatures that can take the form of a fox or a human. They were once one of the most powerful forces in the continent. They could do many things. They could create the illusion of magical islands, dragons dancing around in the sky, the appearance of a huge army approaching the city walls. They were incredibly strong physically, fast and elusive. They could bend animals to their will. To increase their population, they used little girls of other races, human or elven, it did not matter. They simply stole children and increased their population. But at the same time, they incurred the wrath of the humans. Once upon a time, that is. Now the world has changed. Their abilities have diminished, and they are being hunted down. Many of them were killed by witchers. Now the Aguaras are more animals, just foxes, than the powerful relicts they used to be. And there are very few ones left that are still able to take on a human form and make incredible illusions. There are only a few of them. The same can be said about the Kelpies, huge shapeless creatures that once lived in the waters of the northern kingdoms. Like Dopplers, they could take on the appearance of a beautiful stallion, a dolphin, and even a gorgeous woman. It was impossible to catch them in a net because they broke any trap. At the same time, they easily found food, luring careless travelers directly into their mouths with attractive images. They were a real problem for fishermen, but suddenly they just disappeared. The Witchers knew their job well, and it was not difficult for them to destroy Kelpies, who were exposed. The same applies, for example, to the Kraken and the Glustyworps, who have not been seen even on the high seas for many years. Only in the canals of Oxenford was one found by the Witcher Geralt of Rivia, but that does not change the fact. There are fewer and fewer monsters like these. Unique ones. Let us finish with those relicts that have no analogues in this world. How and why did they come to the continent from their home planets? Unfortunately, history does not provide answers to these questions, but each of them has put down deep roots here. They have no kin, they are loners, they are unique. The first of them are the Crones of the Crookback Bog, mysterious creatures hundreds and thousands of years old, those who have managed to become a living and integral part of the lands they settled on. Three ancient creatures who call themselves the Brewis, Weavis, and Wispus. Ugly in their true form, they feed on human flesh and prolong their existence with the help of dark spells. The Crones are the true rulers of Velen, who support the inhabitants of this poor land and in return demand their unquestioning obedience. They have powerful magic, but it is different from that of the sorcerers. Their power comes from water and earth, and they are tightly connected to the land they live in. The Crones can hear everything that happens in their forest. They can predict the future, decide people's fates, and send blessings or curses. In addition to them, our list also includes the Caretaker, a terrifying creature whose motives and origins are unknown. There is only information that he comes from another world. The Caretaker is very strong and fast, and it seems that the world from which the Caretaker came and gone to his home are the same place. The Caretaker has several stitches on his arms and legs, as if some parts of his body were sewn to him separately, and he has no face, which has been cut off from the forehead to the upper lip and replaced with a flap of smooth skin. The Caretaker is thin, hairless, tall, dressed in black hooded rags, and the monster's right arm is tied with bandages. He's a fierce and tireless warrior, without mercy or doubt, a perfect servant of his master, unlike any other living being. The last of the relics of the conjunction are the vile Garnicora and the equally vile Kiranex. The former has something in common with vampires, as it feeds on human blood. She is the spirit of Isgith, which soaked the entire land of those swamps with its filth. Garnicora gained power over everything in Isgith, over the land, water, trees, animals, and even the air. She is the center of the curse that poisons the land. We have her mentioned in another video of ours. Check the description once again. Kiranex is a monster of the Korath Desert, immortal and yet incomprehensible. In the form of a monstrous horse, he travels through the hot wasteland, looking for lonely victims for whom meeting him is literally a death sentence. Humans, vampires, Chorts, fiends, Dopplers, succubi, Aguaras, they all have one thing in common. They are aliens, frankly speaking. They are strangers to the ecosystem and the very essence of the continent. They are the creatures who were forced to learn to survive from the very beginning. But while some became dominant in the entirety of the continent, others could not withstand the competition and were doomed to extinction. That is the classification of the relics of the conjunction of the spheres in the continent. Would you guys be interested to hear about each of these amazing creatures separately? Do write about it in the comments. Put a like and subscribe to the channel, and we're gonna keep you posted with new videos on a regular basis. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon when the old Witcher speaks once more.